บริหารงานองค์กรท่ามกลางความซับซ้อนในโลกปัจจุบันต้องอาศัยความร่วมมือของผู้คนในองค์กรเป็นอย่างมากนะคะรวมถึงความสามารถศักยภาพเฉพาะตัวที่จะต้องดึงออกมาให้ได้และหนึ่งในทักษะที่จะทำให้เกิดขึ้นนะคะก็มีการบรรยายโดยผู้รู้ก็คือคุณดาน่าโซฮาซึ่งเป็นผู้นำในเชิงความคิดในแนวคิดการบริหารจัดการองค์กรและเป็นที่ปรึกษาให้กับองค์กรมากมายที่มีชื่อเสียงระดับชั้นนำของโลกกับแนวคิดการเสริมสร้างความรู้ทางจิตวิญญาณและการเป็นผู้นำเชิงควอนตัมนะคะหรือว่าควอนตัมลีดเดอร์ชิพแต่ว่าหลักการทั้งสองแบบที่ว่านี้จะต้องเดินหน้าทำอย่างไรวันนี้คุณดาน่าโซฮาอยู่กับดิฉันแล้วนะคะที่จะพูดคุยถึงแนวคิดทั้งสองแบบนี้ค่ะ Thank you Dana for joining me
สวัสดีค่ะ
Dana why do all the leaders should be interested in spiritual intelligence What do you mean by that?
Spiritual intelligence is our intelligence of meaning, purpose, vision, and values. And I believe that leadership needs a much greater sense of purpose, a much greater sense of meaning, a much larger vision, and more positive values to be part of the leadership ethic. I think that the loss of these things is why we had the financial crisis in 2008, because the leaders, their only value was making money and being greedy. They took no interest in society. They didn't care about the people. They were getting into financial trouble with the bad mortgages. The bankers didn't care about banking ethics or their customers anymore. And it brought the whole system to a halt. I thought that when the financial crisis happened in 2008, this was good. I thought now they will wake up, now they will change, now they will see they need something new.
Are you telling all the corporate leaders to really forget about money, about the figure in their financial statements?
Certainly you don't forget about money and profit, but it's a question of how you make your money, how you make your profit, and how much profit you make, and how much of your company wealth you give back to society, to educational institutions, to charities, to the community. I think that companies that only think of profit for their shareholders are being very selfish.
But what's so special about spiritual intelligence? What's the difference between IQ, EQ, and SQ?
IQ is just our rational, logical, linear thinking. IQ is what I think. EQ is about my knowledge of my own emotions, my knowledge of your emotions, how to deal with emotions. So EQ is about what I feel. But SQ, which is about meaning and vision and values, and how to live a good life and how to be a good person, SQ is about what I am. And I think that today leaders need to lead with who they are, not with what they say, and not even just with what they do, but with who they are. So I think the leader needs to do a lot of inner work on him or herself and develop his spiritual intelligence. And then the people will be much happier to follow his or her leadership.
Sound very much Buddhism to me if you tell the corporate leaders to really look inside, nurture growth inside. Is it very much like Buddhism?
I think that my work is very like Buddhism. In fact, I am a Buddhist. But I have become a Buddhist because of my thinking from the quantum physics and my thinking from life. I don't think these thoughts because I'm a Buddhist. I became a Buddhist because I think these thoughts. But I think that today Buddhism has a lot to say to the whole world because it is about the inner life and inner improvement, inner struggle, and making oneself a good person, a compassionate person, a person with a sense of vocation. And I think in our materialist world today, where so many of the world's religions have failed people, this is the way people want to go. Not to believe in some other God out there that tells them what to do, but to look into themselves and say, what does myself tell me to do? And to grow the self and to nourish the self.
What's the essence of being leader, which is based on quantum leadership? What's the difference between quantum leadership and just leaders?
Well, you have to understand that much of leadership philosophy has come from the old physics of Isaac Newton, which was formulated in the 17th century. And it stresses the importance of certainty, predictability, control. It says the organization is a machine. It says that every organization has its laws and principles, just as the Newtonian universe has its laws and principles. You get control from the top. The leader thinks he or she has to be the absolute boss. The people are just passive units of production inside the corporation. The quantum leader takes his or her philosophy from quantum physics, which is very different. In quantum physics, power from control from the top actually dampens down the creativity of the system. It's about self-organization, bottom-up organization. In the quantum organization, the individual employees are not just passive people being told what to do. They're co-creative partners in the company. So in a quantum organization, everybody knows all about the company, not just about their own job in the company. Quantum leadership knows how to deal with uncertainty, unpredictability, and chaos. And these are the central challenges of our times, because rapid change and uncertainty face every leader today. You can't just predict the future and say, oh, it's all going to be stable and I can control it. Things are self-organizing in this unified world of ours.
Do you mean the structure or management style of any organization should be organic, should be much more interactive, or should be much responsive to immediate situation rather than to be planned from top down?
Exactly.
Like top-down approach?
The metaphor for the corporation before, or the organization, was the machine, which is mechanistic, rule-driven, control from the top. The quantum organization, as you say, is very much like a living organism, a conscious living organism. People in an organization have motives, they have values, they have principles, they have moods, they have ideas. And organizations that treat people like parts of a machine just discount all that.
So far, you have been like advisor to many big corporations in the globalizing economy. Have they contemplated your idea, your original thoughts to their management style, how
Yes.
they have applied it?
I have one particular example of a company I worked with quite closely, Volvo, who make cars and trucks. And Volvo had a problem. They had to redesign all their cars because back in the 1990s, all Volvo cars looked alike, so they were very boring. And all Volvo parts were different, so it cost a lot to make the parts for the cars that all looked alike. So Volvo wanted to change this. They wanted to go from cars that looked very different, a large selection of different looking cars, but parts that were all universal. So then the customers would want to buy Volvo cars because they'd think that, oh, they're interesting. There are lots of different kinds of Volvos, but it would be cheap to make these universal parts that could go in all Volvo cars. So they had to have a transformation program of their design process. And they were planning the usual mechanistic top-down design process. They were going to have central management, tell the engineers what to do, tell the engineers what teams to be on, tell each team exactly what it was supposed to do. Top-down control. They came to a lecture of mine at a business school in England, and I was talking about quantum management, how it's self-organizing and organic and not top-down control. And they went back to Volvo headquarters and decided to implement this. So all central management did was say to the engineers, this is what we want. We want a lot of cars that look different, but parts that look universal. And then they said to their engineers, you guys figure it out. You decide what teams will be needed to make this happen. You decide who will be on each team, and you decide what each team will do. Totally self-organizing. And then they put all the furniture in the design room on wheels so that if I'm on team A, but I hear that team B is doing something I can contribute to, I just wheel my desk and my computer over to team B and join them for the day.
No more boundaries.
No more boundaries, no more top-down control, all self-organizing.
But does it actually create more chaos in any
No, it
organization,
didn't. It
in
didn't
any
create
corporations?
chaos. It created creativity. I mean, you need a certain amount of chaos for creativity. If everything is fixed in place, how can anything move or change or be different? To have a certain amount of chaos in an organization is a very good thing. I like the chaos in Thai society and the chaos in Bangkok because I feel very free in Bangkok with all this chaos. You know?
So in fact, Bangkokians should be happy with how chaotic we have.
I think you should be
situation
happy
like
with
this.
your chaos, yes.
But normally, corporate leaders or leaders tend not to tolerate chaotic situation. They just want to keep everything in good order.
Well,
Is it wrong perception?
It's a wrong perception today because they can't keep everything in good order because there is so much rapid change, so much new technology, so much global interconnectivity and global communication that a leader of one company can't control anything anymore. But we learn from science that the whole system has a self-organizing pattern to it. So the leader today, instead of trying to control it from the top and you know, be in charge of everything, has to learn to sense the flow of things and understand how to ride with that. And the less control you have within the company, the more flexible the company is, and therefore the more creative, and the more able to deal with the rapid change and uncertainty.
In reality, it must be very hard for any company or any national government to really put this idea into practice.
No, the difficult aspect is in the fear. I think if you learn to celebrate all this chaos, learn to celebrate all this diversity, celebrate all this interconnectedness, you give up your fear, you begin to thrill to it, and you see how much freedom it gives you, how much flexibility it gives you. The old way of management, the structures were heavy and fixed, like old, slow-moving dinosaurs. In the new high-tech companies, a lot of them don't even have central headquarters. Virgin Atlantic doesn't have a central office. It's just a lot of people working in different places, communicating together. The new high-tech companies are getting rid of their shareholders. Not getting rid of the shareholders, but they're taking away shareholder control. Because shareholders want to control a company and say, give us all the money and do it now. So it locks the companies into short-term planning. Companies like Alibaba and the high-tech companies in Silicon Valley are saying, well, you can buy our shares, but you don't get any votes with them because we want to make the decisions, because we want to plan long-term. And we'll do our best to make you your money, but you have to trust us.
So Alibaba is the right form of the current
I think Alibaba is
organization.
fantastic.
No control.
No control from the stockholders, no.
Does it mean quantum leadership style mean there is no real leader? Everyone is leader of themselves?
Everybody is, well, it's not that stark. Everybody in a quantum company is a leader, but of course there will be a head of the company. But the difference is that the head of the company listens to the other people in the company before making his or her decision. He doesn't just walk in and say, I have decided we will do this today. The quantum leader comes in and says to his board of directors, what do you think? How do you see the problem? He thinks about what they say. He listens to what they say. Then he says, okay, I have listened to you. I have thought about what you said. Now I am the CEO. I have to make a decision, and I decide.
The final decision still has to be made by CEO.
Decisions, of course, have to be made. We still need leaders who make decisions and are not afraid to make decisions. But there's a world of difference between a leader who says, I want to hear what you say before I make my decision, and a leader who just comes in and says, I want to do it this way.
You have engaged working your training in local government or in national government as well. How did national governments buy into your ideas?
The most successful local governments are in the Scandinavian countries.
Why?
Because the Scandinavians think in a much more quantum way. They talk a lot more to each other. They dialogue a lot more with each other. There isn't this opposition of parties. Like in the British House of Commons, the Conservatives sit on this side, Labour sits on that side, and they bash against each other.
Is that wrong?
Of course, there's no dialogue. And the people get really no
But
choice.
they fought all the time. They fight all the time, shouting at each other.
Yes, and that's not good.
Is it another form of dialogue? Chaos.
No, shouting at each other is not dialogue. Shouting at each other is saying, I'm right and you're wrong. I know and you don't know. We'll do it my way. Your way is the wrong way. That's shouting at each other. And that's what they do in the House of Commons. But dialogue is saying, let's ask questions together. Let's explore together. Let's discuss it together. I want to know what you have to say so I can think about what I might say.
It will be very peaceful parliament if it appears like that.
It would be a much more effective and creative parliament. Look what's going on in America today. America has completely stopped politically because the Republicans and the Democrats won't cooperate with each other at all. People have no real choice because the Republicans say this way and the Democrats say that way, and they won't talk to each other, and you can't vote for who you want because you want people who cooperate for the good of the public. Talk to each other, dialogue with each other.
Have you ever have a training course for politicians?
In the Scandinavian countries, I have worked with politicians, not in the Western countries, not in the other countries, no. But I would love to.
You must have known about the current situation in Thailand, political situation that we are now in transition. To what extent do you think your idea of spiritual intelligence or quantum leadership can be engaged at national level?
I think the problem in Thailand is like the problem in America. The Reds are fixed in their position. The Yellows are fixed in their position. They clashed in the streets. There were riots. There was shooting. So the military had to take control just to bring peace to the streets. I think, and the people don't like the military, and they say, oh, it's the government's fault now. But in fact, I think the people have to say, look, it's our fault. The Reds and the Yellows should sit down and make an orange coalition. You know, because when you mix red and yellow, you get orange. They need to talk to each other more. They need to dialogue more, not just go like this against each other.
Actually they try, but it didn't work out. That's why the military has to step in.
Well, I don't think they tried hard enough.
So they have to keep pushing for dialogue.
They have to want to resolve the crisis by talking to each other, compromising a bit with each other, saying, most important, understanding each other. I mean, if I'm a yellow and I think, oh, these Reds, they want to ruin the country, they don't know what is good for Thailand, I'm not going to listen to the Reds. And the same if I'm a Red and I say, oh, these Yellows, they're just the elite, they're just the rich people, they don't care about us poor people, we can't cooperate with them, then nobody really talks to each other and understands. You need a sense that Thailand is a whole country, and we're all Thais. And we all have something to lose by the present situation, and we all have something to gain by really talking to each other and wanting to make a nice country for everybody.
Why is it so difficult for Thailand? Thinking of your idea is based on Buddhism. But in Thailand, we do not really have dialogue in this political transition. Why is it so difficult? What do you think?
First of all, I don't think the politics of Thailand is very Buddhist. The country is nominally a Buddhist country, but you have forgotten how to be good Buddhists. Secondly, it isn't just a problem for Thailand. America is divided like this. Britain is divided like this. The Arabs and the Israelis are divided like this. People get locked into positions, and then they say, my position is the right position, and therefore your position is the wrong position. Instead of saying, look, I want to understand why you have your point of view, and I want you to understand why I have my point of view, and we want to work for the good of the whole. But people just get locked into conflict like this. But if Thailand were to practice its Buddhist principles, it would be able to make peace between the Reds and the Yellows.
So that has to be back to real dialogue.
It goes back to spiritual intelligence. It goes back to Thailand rediscovering its spiritual roots and actually developing the Buddhist sense of compassion for others and the sense of that when it comes to the deep self, we are all one. Thailand has got lost in a materialist modern notion of individuals and individual differences and my rights as opposed to your rights. This is not Buddhist. The military should be doing everything it can to be creating places where people talk to each other, not just stamping down control, but creating dialogue chambers and dialogue groups and forcing these people who won't talk to each other to come together and talk.
Forcing.
I'm afraid so, because they have to be forced, because they're so stubborn.
So we cannot wait for different groups or different parties just to have willing to talk. They just have to be forced or under pressure.
Perhaps encouraged is a better word. Encouraged. Not forced with guns, but encouraged by the government could be creating opportunities for people to talk to each other. Could be creating dialogue councils between local government and national government and between the police and the people and between the reds and the yellows. And I think Thailand, but it's got to come from the people, because if the people don't themselves deeply feel their Buddhist spirituality and feel compassion for each other and a wish to serve the whole country, then even a military government can't make them behave themselves.
What should we do on daily basis to practice spiritual intelligence on our own? Can we do it by ourselves?
Yes, we can do it by ourselves. In fact, I think we have to do it by ourselves. I have 12 principles of spiritual intelligence, which people tell me are really quite Buddhist. To be self-aware, to know who you are, to know what you believe in, what you would fight for, what you would die for, what you live for, what you're good at, what you're bad at, to be led by positive values and a sense of vision and purpose, to be spontaneous, that is, live in the moment, look at the problem that's in face of you right now, not carry a lot of grudges from the past and a lot of baggage from the past, to celebrate diversity. And when you celebrate diversity, you don't just tolerate the other person for being different, you thank them for being different. Because if you're different from me and I listen to you, you make me think. You make my brain grow. If you just agree with me, all you do is make me more prejudiced, because I think, oh yes, I'm right, she agrees with me. And this thing that I think is most Buddhist, my 12th principle, is to have a sense of vocation, a sense of being called to serve. I am in this world to serve, to make the world a better place. Why else am I here? And who else is going to do it if I don't do it? Mm-hmm. And you don't have to be a big political leader. You don't have to be the Dalai Lama or Nelson Mandela or Barack Obama to be a servant leader. I can be a servant leader in my home. I can be a servant leader in my job. I can be a servant leader in my community. To see that the point of life is to serve others and to serve the community. That's very Buddhist, I think.
From the past 25 years that you have been doing this training, coaching, and introducing your philosophy, could I say that it's like East meets West philosophy?
I think it is Western science meeting Eastern philosophy. And I think, therefore, the quantum philosophy can be a bridge between East and West. I have just been in China, and I was made the professor of quantum philosophy because they want to build an East-West institute. And they see the quantum ideas as a natural bridge between Western scientific thinking and Eastern spiritual and philosophical thinking. And that has been that for me in my personal life as well.
You have nurtured so much about spiritual intelligence, how people should grow inside. But the world economy is very competitive. Each national government emphasizes very much on GDP. What if GDP policy is going on like this? What's going to happen?
I like the idea that was developed by Bhutan, that you think of quality of life and gross domestic happiness, not gross domestic product. I think that the competition between nations is as bad as the competition between political groups. Our world has many problems that are the problems of the whole world. The environment is the biggest one. The cost of war is a big one. The threat of disease is a big one. If all these countries work together in the United Nations for the good of the whole world, instead of thinking, oh, I want what's best for my country and my GDP, the world would be a peaceful place. It's again people just feeling more compassion for each other, more service to the whole, wanting to make something together that is beautiful and kind and good, not just thinking of me, me, and mine, mine, mine.
You said the most difficult aspect to pursue your idea is fear. So how should we overcome fear to follow your path?
Give up fear and go into exploration. Nourish your curiosity. Open your mind to all that's wonderful and beautiful in the world and say, this is exciting, not, oh dear, I'm afraid to go there. Oh dear, I'm afraid to step outside my front door. Oh dear, I'm afraid to make peace with my neighbor. Welcome it. Open your arms to life, to the world.
Looking back to the past 25 years when you just initiated this training course, did people thought you were crazy?
Yes.
And how did you answer?
I just kept talking.
Just keep calm and carry on?
Just keep calm and carry on, yes.
How do you overcome your own fear of people not believing in you?
I don't have a fear of people not believing in me. I believe in me, and I believe in what I'm saying, and it feels good and right to me. I question myself all the time. I meditate many hours every day. I question myself in my meditation. But after I have questioned myself, I feel this is right. And I will fight for it. This is what I live for, and this is what I would die for.
You have talked to young leaders in many countries.
Yes.
What's your hope after talking to them?
I hope that young people will stay young when they get old. Because young people are much more open-minded. Young people are much more idealistic. Young people are less fearful. They're adventurous. They're curious. They're willing to try new things. For some reason, when we get older, we close down. We become full of fear. I think it's partly the Buddhist thing about craving. We crave to hang on to what we've got when we get older. Young people don't have so much. So they're not less fearful of losing what they have. So they just go out and grab the world. But older people say, oh, but I've got this and I don't want to lose it, and I've got that and I don't want to lose it, and I've got this mortgage to pay and these school fees to pay. And they become full of fear. And fear is a form of craving, really. It's a fear of letting go of what you have, of material things. It's clinging to things. It's not Buddhist.
How do you keep going what you are doing?
It just gives me great strength. I mean, I don't know, I feel inspired to do it.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you very much. ขอบคุณมากค่ะ
Come, Puka.